What's up, y'all? I've got some good news for you today. Kyle Shannon and Dave Hester are in the house. They run probably one of the most impactful transitioning career services out there, and it's for our servicemen and women. And they're here to share everything they've learned and how it can benefit you as someone who's trying to transition into tech sales. So, welcome, gentlemen. Appreciate you being here.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Jack.
100%. So, for us that actually don't really know you guys, can you just tell us maybe what you do and how you yourselves transitioned into tech sales?
Yeah, I'll lead off because I think Kyle's story is kind of intertwined with mine. So I was a 13-year Army officer, left the military in 2018, got involved with a startup, came across this DoD program when I was in my transition called the Skill Bridge program. And we kind of coined the phrase like it's the best kept secret in the military. And at the time it really was. It was kind of in its infancy in terms of getting more production and getting throughput with candidates and new industry partners coming in. And there was a lot of industry partners, right? You could do a lot with this program. You could apply for you could go be a manager at a notable, pizza franchise, but there wasn't anything for sales. And so as we were looking at, building a startup and how we're going to do that, like we wanted to put the veteran face, in the front of that company and like hire veterans. I mean, we were just coming from that. It was a level of trust there. And long story short, shout out to John Barrows who like came on very early on with us. So when we were building services software, we put it together as a nonprofit. Kyle was like candidate number one, and then ultimately came on and helped me scale this thing. He had great success. So, and Kyle just came back with us this month as director of partnerships after a little bit of a hiatus. But yeah, man, like we wanted to offer veterans a path to sales because I think their characteristics, everything I learned about sales, like winning attitude, like you're getting paid off performance, like those were things that just resonated, especially coming from combat arms. You're in a high performance environment. Like how could I keep my competitive nature going into that? And so yeah,
That's
since
huge.
2019, we've had almost 500 candidates come through our program. And again, John's providing all of his training. So yeah, big shout out to John. But yeah, our candidates, we go out and find companies and pair them with our candidates for this 4 to 5 month internship. And so they get like this 4 to 5 month internship where it's like they're ramping, they're building this candidate who meets all the character qualities they're looking for, and then it's off to the races for their sales career. So yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for doing this for the community. Seriously, I come
Yeah,
from an
man.
army family, father served, ton of generations before him. And, I've got a heart for veterans and I just appreciate what you guys are doing. So, Kyle, you actually were candidate number one. So, how did you get into tech sales? Kind of break that down for us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a wild ride to say the least. Yeah, I didn't have a traditional path to sales like a lot of people do. Truthfully, I struggled like all get out going through high school. The next best thing for me was to go into the army. So, like I went into the army right out of high school, did about just short of a decade of service, and when I was getting out, I truthfully didn't know what I wanted to do. It was either going to be, hey, go push dirt or blow something up. Like those were the only two things I knew coming from the army. And I was like, I do want to do something business related, but that's very broad. And I just started to do some research and stuff. I met Dave at one of the briefings that they do as you're going out of the military. And he kind of painted this picture of, hey, here's what a world of like in a sales rep would look like. And I just gravitated so hard towards it because in the military, it doesn't matter like how hard you work, how much time you put in. Your pay doesn't reflect that, right? Like as long as me and you are the same rank and have the same time of service, like we're all getting paid the same. And I could be putting in double amount of effort, double amount of time as you. It wouldn't matter. When I learned about this opportunity, it was just like a no-brainer for me, right? Like, oh, somewhere where I can come in and just like go 1000% ahead and actually be compensated for it, like, sign me up, dude. Um,
Hmm.
I think that's what I said to him on the spot actually, like, "Where do I sign? Where do I sign the dotted line?" Um, so yeah, I came in, candidate, yeah, number one, and then ultimately employee number one over here at Services Software. And since then, for right off the rip, helped Dave kind of build things out, put the program together in a more structured way so more people could succeed. And then I was like, hey, man, it's been a fun ride, but I want to go delve into SaaS land again. So over the past 4 years, it's been SDR manager, account executive at some early stage startups, and then last place was a home services company that we actually got acquired. Here we are again. The boys are back together.
Round 2.
Round
Round
2.
2. Good.
Yeah.
This is a powerful team right here. So, part of this is a lot of listeners are actually trying to get into tech sales right now. And I understand you guys have a pretty solid screening process to determine if you're gonna be able to partner with some of the transitioners coming out of the service. So, what I wanna understand is maybe what are, like, the top 3 questions you really prepare your candidates for, so that when they show up to these interviews, they're confident, they have a good storyline behind it, and they're coming in and they're impressing these managers during these interviews.
Yeah, Kyle, I'll let you go. I'll cap it off here.
Oh shoot, okay. Yeah, it's funny because I was just talking to an SDR director about this literally probably 10 minutes before I hopped into this meeting. But to me, I think the most important thing is like your character, right? There's these innate traits that are instilled in you, like as you grow up and ultimately like who you become as a man and a woman. Those are things that you can't really like teach somebody, right? Like you're born with it and it's kind of forged as you go about your life. You either have it or you don't, right? So for me, I like to see things like their grit, their discipline, right? Like how much do they actually want to make in life? Because if they tell me like 40K, that's not a good sign, right? Because you're like settling at that point. So I don't know, I have probably three big questions that I look for. The first one, kind of how I kick things off is, when you're looking at your experience, what are two or three key moments or skills that you believe directly align with this role, right?
Mm,
I'm a firm believer in really no matter what you do or did in life can some way be tied to a sales role,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you
So
could look.
what are 2 or 3 you wanna hear? 'Cause I my brain goes a few different places, like, I definitely wanna hear grit for sure. I also probably wanna hear, competitive, like, goal driven, something like that. So what are you
Yeah.
looking for in that answer?
No, I mean that you just hit on my two important ones right there. Thanks for
There you
stealing
go,
my thunder.
okay. Well, I haven't done this for years, so I don't know really what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and then the other one I think is just like high performance, right? Like if they can weave in, oh hey, let's call it I was a Chick-fil-A, order taker, but that'll be dang if I wasn't like the number one person with the most revenue or, with the highest customer satisfaction, something like that, like I can really tell, holy smokes, like this person is on it.
Yeah. I think academics is a good one to reach for, academic performance, obviously athletic performance. Any prior sales experience is like, duh, use that. But to your point, every single job out there, you're not working there for free. Like you are making the business money somehow. You're either preserving the revenue or you're increasing the revenue. So
Yep.
you've got to figure out, even if you're, a clerk, right? Or if you're working at Nordstrom putting clothes back, well, that's retention, right? And that's
Yeah.
like you have to figure out where does my role connect to revenue?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and that is so hard for transitioning service members because the military is, by all accounts, a non-revenue generating organization. So how do they do it, right? And what are we looking for in that? Well, honestly, man, like I've given a lot of thought to this. It comes down to just like, and I learned this about myself. Like, why do I do what I do? What am I shooting for? Honestly, like having a confidence coach. I got to work with a guy who's the former head of performance psychology at West Point. I did not go to school there. Shout out to West Point people, but I got to work with
Okay.
him and like when we like dissected some things about performance and like as an executive coach now, You know what it came down to is just like desire to win. Like I just love to win. I want to see people win. I want to be part of winning cultures. I want to build winning environments. And so while I don't have like a load of specific questions, and I think this goes to managers out there, I gravitate and pull from stories because I don't have experience to go off of with transitioning service members. Like the other day, I was talking to a service member who's looking at our program, and some other team members like couldn't pull enough from him. Like, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to be in sales? Why do you want to go this route? Right? Like, what does your future hold? And like, finally, he was like telling me a story. He was like, "Look, man, like." I'll give you a great example, like, of why I like to win. He was like, Because I want other people to win." And the other day, like, I was part of a response team that, like, saved this guy's life, like, on the ground, like, in the military. It was kinda in the news too, and he just was like, "Yeah, we administered and, like, did everything in this high stress environment to make sure that, like, our team was able to win." And, like, when somebody tells me something like that, regardless of, like, what experience they have in sales and whatnot, there's automatically just some character attributes and things I can extrapolate from this person that
Mhm.
tell me that, like, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And you get it, when we go out and build partnerships, we're talking to sales leaders, it's give me veterans, give me military. And I would take it one step further and just say, give me people that just have a just insatiable desire to win. And
Yeah.
and I think
Yeah.
we that's a lot of what I pull from when I'm talking to candidates.
Yeah, so something from my perspective as an SDR leader, having been in this role for over 4 years, recruiting SDRs every month, hundreds of interviews. A lot of times, because it's entry level, it does draw in inexperienced people. And so one of the main things I have to index for is, are you serious about life? Like, do you actually care? And so, Dave, if that person came to me in an interview cycle and told that story, immediately I would think they're responsible, they care about life,
Yes.
they're leaders, they step up. So any question of immaturity or are they gonna be screwing around? Like, no, this guy just saved a life. He's good on that front. Like, we're dialed in, we're good to go there. And I love what you're saying about storytelling because oftentimes what we hear as managers, and you know this, we hear the right answer, but there's no substance underneath it. And as
That's
soon
right.
as you ask a follow-up question, it's like, I don't really know because I just said what I'm
Yeah.
supposed to say. Stories communicate way more than just a canned answer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'd say for aspiring SDRs listening to this, we do a lot of work, obviously, with people with not a lot of experience on how to interview. And it's a lot different than showing up to a military board and you're in your pinks and greens. So one of the things we do is we have them build interview scripts that, have stories. We use the star format. It's very traditional, but it works. It's consistent. It continuously shows character attributes that otherwise wouldn't be shown. And a lot of times you can apply those stories to a numerous, amount of different answers, or questions that are asked, sorry. And it's like you kind of already have the answer to the test going into the interview. We have a saying that if you fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And we hold that true when it comes to interview techniques and just being successful and putting who you really are, because that's ultimately what people
Yeah.
want to see in sales is like who are you as a person.
Can you break down, either you or Kyle, the star format and kinda why you like that? Because I know what it is. You can go on YouTube. Yeah, anyone out there listening, you can look it up. HubSpot, like, demands that you use the star format, and so a lot of
Absolutely.
other companies have adopted it. So, yeah, break that down for us.
I was gonna say I'll let Dave because he's actually kind of like our master.
Yeah. So, typically, I think the way we do it is we go out and say, okay, what are the top 20, 50 interview questions for this role, for BDR, SDR? And there's a lot you can pull from, now AI, Chat GPT will give you like the most asked questions just based off data it pulls and stuff like that. And then when you take those answers, and regardless if you have experience in sales or not, like even if they ask you why do you want to be in sales, or why is sales an enticing career, even if you don't have experience, you can tell a story through the star format, which is situation, task, action, and result. And a lot of times that paints a narrative for the viewer. And it should be like the way we teach it is like it's a story. You craft your story in that format, and then you kind of put it together in a paragraph. And so as
Yeah.
you're interviewing, you've typically, if you're remote or whatever, you've got one screen up with the Zoom or whatever the platform is, and then you've got your script right beside it, so that when they ask you a question, you can just go there, reference it, and then boom, after you've already had it written down, your mind remembers that story. Obviously, you
Muscle
know the
memory.
story,
Yeah.
muscle memory. So you just look at the answer. Okay, why sales? Boom. Oh, I told this story. Great. Okay. And then you can just kind of, you're not reading off the script, but you're using it as a reference to say, like, hey, yeah, there was this one time where, I did X, Y, and Z, and here was my actions, here was the results that happened. And I think key there in the star format is result. If you can tell a story that leads to a positive result, either for yourself, for your team, those are winning recipes in a lot of the interviews. You have like one more nugget too, like, after the interviews, like we teach the star format, but we also teach like those who follow up win. And that's like our common statement, right? And so like the follow up is key. I've got some tips and tricks on that as well.
Nice. Okay. Okay. So real fast on the star format, I too coach clients, and one of the things that I've added to it, I call it star P, start, and it's
Okay.
the word is plan at the end, and the way that sounds is like, so how I plan on applying everything I learned through this situation as an SDR at your company is fill in the
Ooh,
blank. And
wow.
so
I like that.
I've boiled down the star framework to what I call the 3P framework. It's perspective, proof, plan. So ask about failure. Well, first off, my perspective on failure is that it's essential to growth. The proof, and that it's not, you don't use the word proof, but you give a story, an example.
Yeah.
Here's a time where I failed, and then here's what I learned, and then plan. So, how I plan on applying my learnings from that situation is I know as an SDR, I'm going to hit so many objections and I'm going to hit a ton of resistance, but using what I learned from the proof, here's how I'm going to adapt. And so it's just about getting that manager to visualize you in their SDR spot. So if you're talking and you're future pacing of you already in the role, they're starting to actually see you in the role and make that mental connection.
Yeah. I
That
like that. I'm gonna
that's
steal
actually
that.
solid.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
Now you're going to talk about follow up. Did you want to give away the nuggets here, or is this like a resource that we should reach out
Well,
for
I've
after?
actually, another shout out here, Morgan Ingram and the AMP creative team, their newsletter's awesome. He posted something the other day in their newsletter. I forget her name. We can reference it in the podcast notes here, but it was basically like how this person got an enterprise sales job, her top 5 like secrets. And it's one thing that like one of the number, like the top 3 was like video, pre-video, like sending a video prior to the interview, and then the video follow up after. Those those key things, like, and for the viewers, like, this is a sales getting a job is a sale, right? And so like you should treat it the same way. And that's a big piece of what we teach is like, look, how you get into these companies, you build champions, you get the champions to introduce you to decision makers. This is all part of that, right? You send video follow-ups and sales at times when it's relevant. It's the same thing, and I think that lends itself to another character attribute of just like winning, going the extra mile. And so we promote that quite a bit. So throw that in your kit bag. There's tools out there like Loom. I mean, you can record a 30-second follow-up video. And we have a format for it where, like, it's just, it's express gratitude, talk about the hard things from the interview, and then, validate next steps. And with those 3 things, you can really make an impact.
I love it. I love it. This is similar to the follow-up topic, but not the same. So if you're ever wondering when you're going to hear back from a manager or a recruiter on next steps, steal this frame. It's just in the spirit of being a good SDR. I wanted to be proactive and
There you
follow up
go.
to keep this opportunity warm. So you're literally getting to like lean on the fact and the excuse that this is an SDR role. Of course, you're going to follow up. So there's another nugget right there. Dave, I love your video idea. And the thing is, especially, I mean, Kyle, you know this too, having interviewed a ton of candidates, the bar is so low. The bar is so low for good. And so, Dave, if you're teaching your people to come in here and take a follow up video, I'm already super jazzed about that candidate. And I think that they're going to work hard because they're already doing more than the rest of the candidates in the pipeline.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think honestly, like that's my probably my biggest takeaway for somebody trying to like crack the code and get in there is just you got to think about it from a perspective of what is it that I'm going to be doing and what can I do about it now? So like the job of being an SDR or BDR is prospecting, doing all that good jazz. leverage that in your interview process, right? Like there's a ton of free things out there, Google Sheets, Notion, ClickUp, you name it, where you can go out and build a spreadsheet of all the desirable companies that you want. You can then put a next tab of like your personas, right? Who's the VP of sales, who's the director of sales, the CRO, the talent leader, all that, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Jack, you don't know me from Adam, but I saw your team was hiring for an SDR. Here I am reaching out to you for an interview. You got 30 minutes. Come like that'll, or especially if you pick and like cold call a CRO for a job, like you've already set yourself above 99% of people, right? Because
Yeah.
I would dare to say like 1% of people are doing these kinds of things to get these jobs, and it's like
Agree. Yeah.
if you want the
The
job, do the job.
do the job to get the job. What resources do you guys have, and how can people get connected to you all for more support?
Yeah, look, we've got a lot for interview prep. I think, we primarily work with the veteran community, but we'll have my LinkedIn in here. Feel free to reach out to me because if we can do this with people with no experience, if you're maybe coming out of this with a little bit of SCR or BDR experience, you're looking for that next step in your career, like we can definitely help with that as well. Give you some pointers along the way. I would say another like resource that's out there if you're on the job hunt and you want to treat this like a sale, like you would BDRing into a company, finding decision makers, shout out to Hunter. It's an awesome tool and it's basically like a CRM for, like job hunters. And it will literally help you manage personas, who you're targeting. One thing I will say is like try to deviate away from going to career pages and dropping resumes and
Yeah.
applications. I
Wasting
think
your time. Yeah.
you're wasting your time. It has, I mean, the data showed last year it was like less than 2% success rate. I think it's even less than that a little bit, but you're better off like connecting with people first and don't apply until somebody tells you to. Like that's the golden rule because then you're in, right? They just need you
Mhm.
in their applicant tracking system for reference.
Nailed it.
Yeah, and I think the same thing applies for like any role. Like I see a bunch of people in customer success, software engineers, like you name it, where they share their story on LinkedIn of how they did 2,000 applications, got 10 interviews, and like no offers. And it's like, this is a point in time where like you got to get a little bit uncomfortable to get the things that you want in life. Like something I tell our candidates and service members is like don't be afraid, like reach to the top, right? Nothing is stopping you from reaching out to the CEO of Google or Microsoft or, you name it. Be bold, kind of like Dave says to us is be bold and let the mighty forces come to your aid.
I
Because
love it.
if you want something, you got to go get it and you got to be bold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the way I was raised is if I want a job, I need to get myself dressed up and go in person and shake the manager's hand and ask for one. And
Yeah.
that does not change just because we're virtual.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, gents, really appreciate you being on here. Appreciate the work you're doing. Service to software is at servicetosoftware.com. If there are any vets out there or transitioning members that want to look into it.
Yeah. It's servicetosoftware.org.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, check out the .org. And Kyle and Dave are both on LinkedIn, so find them out there. We'll make sure we link your profiles and stuff below. Gentlemen, really appreciate you being on.
Yep.
Absolutely. It's been a
Jack. God
blast, man.
bless you, brother. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, y'all.